Chapter 34, Part 1. The Cantatas after 1734. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. J.S. Bach, Volume 2 by Albert Schweitzer, translated by Ernest Newman. Chapter 34, Part 1. The Cantatas after 1734. We possess about 70 of the cantatas Bach wrote after 1734. About 30 of these belong to the years 1735 and 1736. The remainder, chiefly chorale cantatas, were written between 1737 and 1745. The cantata Lob den Herren mein Schiel, number 143, second composition, was probably performed on New Year's Day 1735. The text of the aria, Tausend Fasch und Glück Schrecken, a thousandfold misery and fear, describes how grievously the neighbouring peoples had suffered from war and destitution during the previous months, while for the land in which this cantata was sung to the praise of God the preceding year had been one of blessing. The situation, as Spitta shows, agrees best with the year 1734, when almost the whole of Europe had been convulsed by the War of the Polish Succession, 1733 to 1735. Saxony, however, being spared the horrors of war, and further having the gratification of seeing its sovereign enter Warsaw in December of that year as the bearer of peace. The text of the cantata is mainly made up out of 3 verses of Psalm 146 and 2 verses of the chorale Du Friede Fürst Herr Jesu Christ. There is a particularly fine effect in the concluding chorus, in which the soprani sing the 3rd strophe of the chorale, and the other voices accompany them with alleluias. The orchestra comprises strings, bassoons, 3 horns and kettle drums. In the aria Jesu rette deine Hert, which the strings accompany with the chorale, the bassoon and continuo bass have an interesting duet. The cantata for the 4th Sunday after Epiphany, Wer Gott nicht mit uns diese Zeit, number 14, upon Luther's paraphrase of Psalm 124, also seems to belong to the year 1735. The first chorus is a fugal one in the style of Pachelbel. As in the choral prelude, Wenn wir in höchsten Noten sind, Peters 7, number 58, Bach here employs throughout the inversion of the melodic segments as counterthemes in the separate fugues that make up this skillfully wrought chorus. The cantus firmus is given to the instruments alone. This is one of the most difficult of Bach's vocal movements. If well done, the hearer will not be conscious of the ingenuity of the workmanship. All he will perceive will be the spirit of transfigured peace that breathes through the music. The 2 arias contrast with the chorus by their strongly realistic character. In the first, Unsere Starke heißt zu schwach unserem Feind zu widerstehen, our strength is too weak to withstand our enemy, the orchestra depicts the tumult of the world battle in which the faithful cry to God for help. In the second, Gott bei deinem starken Schützen sind wir von den Feinden frei, God, thy mighty help, hath set us free from our enemies. The mighty help is represented in an angular but powerful trio between the 2 oboes and the continuo bass. The voice enters with a proud theme of its own that appears to symbolize the word free. The aria is a notable example of Bach's delineation of power. If its true character is to be preserved in performance, the marking of vivace must not be taken in an exaggerated modern sense. Footnote. Spitta justly remarks that at the commencement of the recitative we must read Ja hatte Gott es zugen ben, instead of Ja hatte es Gott nicht zugen ben, as it is printed in the BG edition. End footnote. As the text of the Reformation cantata, Gott der Herr ist schon und Schild, number 79, also speaks of the miseries of war and salvation from them, it likewise seems to relate to the special events of 1735. In the first chorus, The largely planned symphonic accompaniment is built up out of two themes. The first, beginning as a fanfare in the horns, is apparently a solemn hymn of triumph. Afterwards it is used as the accompaniment to the chorale Nun danket alle Gott. The second theme is overpowering in its exaltation. The chorus goes its own way at the beginning and the end, tranquilly and majestically. In the middle section, however, the voices are caught up in the stream of exaltation of the second theme. Footnote: Spitta thinks he sees elaborate combinations of instruments in this chorus, down to the rhythm of the drums. This movement was afterwards turned by Bach into the Gloria of the G major Mass, BG 8. End footnote. The chorus is one of the most impressive ever written by Bach. A positively blinding radiance gleams from it. It is as if we were looking at a victorious battle in the rays of morning. In the cry sent up in the midst of the battle, Gott, ach Gott, verlass die dienen nimmermehr, O God, forsake not thy own, the raging conflict is depicted by means of the tumult motive. The musical picture strongly reminds us, as Spitta observed, of that in the aria with chorus Mit unserer Macht ist nichts getan in the cantata Ein feste Burg, No. 80. Among the cantatas written for the Sundays after Easter are 9 of which the nature of the text shows them to have been connected. They extend from the second Sunday after Easter to the third day in Whitsuntide. Spitta accidentally discovered the poems in the Versuch in Gebunde Schreibart, Part 1, of Marianne von Ziegler, published in 1728. Footnote: In his biography, Spitta conjectured that these libretti were by a new poet, but he was unable to identify the poet until later in his Musikgeschichtliche Aufsätze, Berlin 1892. With Marianne von Ziegler, the texts of Gott fahret auf mit Jauchen, No. 43, and Ich bin ein guter Hirt, No. 85, are not found among her poems, though their quality forbids us to attribute them to anyone but her. End footnote. In these texts, the biblical words play a much larger part than in Picander's. This gives Bach the opportunity to write fine arioso and motet-like choruses. It would certainly be agreeable to him also to have the aria texts in free strophes rather than in the strict tripartite scheme of the da capo aria. As poetry, the texts are greatly superior to those of Picander. As we read through the scores, we fancy we can realize the delight with which Bach set to work on these new texts. He undoubtedly composed them all in one sequence. Spitta attributes them to the year 1735. Footnote: The cantatas are as follows: Ich bin ein guter Hirt, No. 85, for the second Sunday after Easter. Ich werdet weinen und heulen, No. 103, for the third Sunday after Easter. Es ist so gut, dass ich hingehe, No. 108, for the fourth Sunday after Easter. Bisher habst dir nicht gebeten, No. 87, for the fifth Sunday after Easter. Gott fahret auf mit Jauchzen, No. 43, for Ascension. Auf Christi Himmelfahrt allein, No. 128, for Ascension. Sie werden euch in den Bann tun, No. 183, second composition, for the sixth Sunday after Easter. Wer mich liebet, der wird mein Wort halten, No. 74, for the first day in Whitsuntide. Also hat Gott die Welt geleist, No. 68, for the second day in Whitsuntide. Rufet seine Schaf, No. 175, for the third day in Whitsuntide. End footnote. The cantata for the second Sunday after Easter, Ich bin ein guter Hirt, No. 85, is written for a solo quartet. It is in Bach's delightful lyrical style. Particularly fine is the simple heartfelt tenor aria Secht was die Liebe tut. The soprano aria Der Herr ist mein getreuer Hort is in the form of a chorale prelude upon the melody Allein Gott in der Hoch sei Herr. The powerful first chorus of the cantata for the third Sunday after Easter, Ihr werdet weinen und heulen, number 103, Ye will weep and cry aloud, but the world will rejoice, yet your mourning shall be turned into joy, is based upon the continual antithesis of a theme in the rhythm of joy and a motive of wailing. In the tenor aria Erholet euch betrübt Stimmen, uplift yourselves again, ye grieving voices, the joy motive carries away all the voices of the orchestra with it in a wild dance. The music here expresses the words O Freude der nicht gleichen kann, O joy beyond compare, which occur in the middle of the text. The text of the cantata Es ist euch gut, dass ich hingehe, number 108, for the fourth Sunday after Easter, is founded on two beautiful passages from the farewell words of Jesus. Bach sets the first, It is expedient for you that I go away, for if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you, John 16:7, in the form of a bass arioso, in which the strings accompany the vaporous arabesques of the oboe d'amore with tender staccato quavers representing the passing away of the transfigured Saviour. The orchestral picture reminds us of the musical illustration of the words, But after I am risen again, I will go before you into Galilee, in the St. Matthew Passion. The second passage, Howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth, John 16:13, is set as a motet. In the tenor aria, Mich kann kein Zweifel stören, no doubt can disturb me, the semiquavers wandering aimlessly, as it were, in the solo violin, symbolize the doubt, while the firmly moving bass represents immovable faith. Then the joy of faith finds expression in the contralto aria Was mein Herz von dir begehrt, ach, das wird mir wohl gewahrt. Ah, what my heart desires of thee, that wilt thou give me, in which the first violins give out the joy motive in every possible form. This cantata is a perfect expression of the mood of the farewell words of Jesus as they are given to John. These words are the basis also of the cantata for the fifth Sunday after Easter, Bisher hast dich nicht gebeten in meinem Namen, number 87. Footnote, solo cantata for alto, tenor and bass. The bass arioso in der Welt hast dir Angst, aber seid getrost, ich habe die Welt überwunden, is as effective as it is simple. In the alto aria Vergib, O Vater, unsere Schuld, forgive, O Father, our trespasses, the sighs and moans of the oboes are carried up to heaven by the ascending basses. The tenor aria, Ich will leiden, ich will schweigen, which closes the cantata, is one of Bach's most beautiful creations. The first violins circle about the voice as if in a saintly dance. The form of this aria is interesting as being typical of a number of others written about the same time. It uses the tripartite da capo scheme, but departs from it to the extent that the vocal theme is different from that of the orchestra. The words are declaimed in a free arioso. Thus, in these movements, Bach partly emancipates himself from the Italian aria. The intermediate form which he creates is in many respects an ideal one. In the large Ascension cantata in 3 parts, Gott fahret auf mit Jauchzen, number 43, the superiority of Marianne von Ziegler's texts from a musical point of view becomes quite clear. For the opening chorus she chooses the splendid verse from the Psalms, "God goeth up with a merry noise, and the Lord with the sound of a trumpet." Bach, of course, represents the going up by means of bold, upward striving lines. The chief figure in the violins covers 2 octaves in 4 bars. The soprano enters with this phrase,
Gott wäret auf, Gott wäret auf.
To which the 3 trumpets add their fanfares. The concise form of the chorus makes the strength of the music all the more effective. In the tenor aria, Ja 1000mal 1000 begleiten den Wagen, the violins have a theme in unison that rises and falls time after time in a manner suggestive of the peculiar melodic line of the aria Gern will ich mich bekämen in the St. Matthew Passion. Here, as there, the fluctuations of the melody have their meaning. They are meant to symbolize the movement of earth and heaven which, according to the text, bend beneath the chariot of the Lord. The soprano aria, Mein Jesu hat nun mehr, resembles in its march form the introductory arioso of the cantata Es ist euch gut, dass ich hingehe, number 108. In the course of the text, mention is made of the return of the Son to the Father. Perhaps this explains the step-like rhythm that runs through the whole movement. In the bass aria, ist's der ganz allein, which is accompanied only by the trumpet, Christ's victory is described under the Old Testament image of the treader of the winepress. Bach, of course, does not let pass the opportunity to represent this proud stamping in his music, and he does not hesitate to write such progressions as these in the bass. The alto aria, Ich seh schon im Geist, wie zur Rechten Gottes auf seine Feinde schmeißt, is at the first glance surprising. It looks as if the fervent music did not agree with the words, Now I see in spirit how he sits on the right hand of God and smites his enemies. The almost melancholy tone of the movement is explained by the final words of the text, Ich steh hier am Weg und schau ihm sehnlich nach. I stand here by the way and look towards him with longing. There is a kind of divine homesickness in the dialogue of the 2 oboes. The movement is typical of the freer form of aria that Bach was employing at this time. The smaller Ascension cantata, Auf Christi Himmelfahrt allein, number 128, begins with a chorale chorus upon the melody Allein Gott in der Ho sei Herr, to which the orchestra adds an independent accompaniment in upward striving lines. Footnote: for the feast days Bach needed 2 cantatas, as the evening service also had to be musical. End footnote. The most striking of the instrumental motives is derived from the opening notes of the chorale. The bass aria, Auf mit hellem Schall, is a bravuro piece for a solo trumpet. Its style, it is constructed on the joy motive, reminds us of the tenor aria Erholet euch in the cantata Ihr werdet weinen und heulen, number 103. This second Ascension cantata also ends with an aria more thoughtful than brilliant. In the cantata for the 6th Sunday after Easter, Sie werden euch in den Bann tun, number 183, second composition, solo cantata for soprano, alto, tenor and bass. There is an antithesis between the other movements, and the somber introductory arioso, Sie werden euch in den Bann tun, es kommt aber die Zeit, dass wer euch todet wird meiden, tu Gott einen Dienst darin. They express the joyous anticipation of death. In the soprano aria, Hoste troste Heiliger Geist, der du mir die Wege weist, darauf ich wandeln soll, the confident setting out upon the way that leads to death is accompanied by a cheerful dance theme. The first chorus of the cantata for Whitsuntide, Wer mich liebet, der wird mein Wort halten, number 74, is an arrangement of the opening duet of the Weimar cantata bearing the same title, number 59. The music of the aria, Komm mein Herz stech dir offen, is derived from the same source. The imperfect declamation of the first words is enough to show that Marianne von Ziegler's text has simply been written underneath it. In the aria, so upon Christ's farewell words, I go, but I shall return to you, the step progression must be made to stand out clearly through the quaver figures, or the accompaniment of the continuo bass will not tell its story. The last two arias are noticeable more for length than for depth. In the cantata for the second day of Whitsuntide, Also hat Gott die Welt geliebt, number 68, the two arias, Mein glaubiges Herz and Du bist geboren mir so gut, are taken from the Weimar secular cantata Was mir behagt ist nur die muntere Jagd. The choruses are original. The first, upon the fine passage in John 3:16, is accompanied by the gently swaying rhythm with which Bach loves to express the feeling of joyous serenity. In the other, a motet-like chorus, in which strings and wind are added to the voices, Bach writes peculiarly severe music to express the idea of the Last Judgment, already in process, of which St. John speaks in the passage, Whosoever believes in him shall not be judged, but whosoever believes not is already judged. The cantata of the third day of Whitsuntide, Rufet sein Schaf mit Namen, number 175, begins with an arioso and aria for three flutes. Footnote: Solo cantata for alto, tenor, and bass. End footnote. In these two lovely pastorals, Bach employed the flute da bec, not the traverse flutes. The bass aria, Öffnet euch, is accompanied only by two trumpets. Footnote: The aria Es dunkelt mich, ich seh dich kommen comes from the secular cantata Durchlauchteste Leopold, BG 34. The chorale harmonization of Nun wird der Geist is taken from the cantata Wer mich liebet, der wird mein Wort halten, number 59. End footnote. Of the Easter cantatas written in the middle of the 30s, we may mention two, Erfreut euch ihr Herzen, number 66, and Bleib bei uns, number 6, both intended for Easter Monday. The great opening chorus of Erfreut euch ihr Herzen, number 66, is very agreeable in its sentiment. Even the orchestration is better than that of the other festival cantatas. Only one trumpet is employed, and that most effectively. The accompaniment is dominated by the joy motive. It does not appear, however, in the middle section, marked andante by Bach, as the text speaks of tears and fears and anguish. The arias of this rather broadly planned cantata are likewise written in a more pleasant style. The forte, piano and pianissimo that Bach has marked in the bass aria, Lasset dem Husten, are very instructive. The solo movements of Bleib bei uns, denn es will Abend werden, number 6, are also somewhat lengthy. The most notable section is the opening chorus, a masterpiece of poetry and music. abide with us, say the disciples at Emmaus, pleadingly and caressingly. Footnote. Note the curious accentuation of the by in the sequel. The accents are varied thus: bleis by us, bleis by uns, bleis by uns. End footnote.
Bleib bei uns, bleib bei uns.
At the words "denn es will Abend werden," for evening is nigh, the voices descend as if the gloom of night were weighing upon them.
Denn es will Abend werden und der Tag hat sich genelget.
In the accompaniment, we hear an anxious quivering. In the andante of the middle section, the triple rhythm gives way to 4/4 time. The words "bleis bei uns" become still more expressive of entreaty and pain. Long-drawn cries resound from the gloomy fields, then all is still. Once more the prayer returns in the caressing triple rhythm. The cadence suddenly slips into the major and ends in bright colours, as if the Lord had intimated the granting of the prayer. The same mood dominates the introductory sinfonia to the cantata for the first Sunday after Easter, Am Abend aber des selbigen Sabbats, number 42, except that the anxiety expressed in the harmonies of the Bleis bei uns is lacking here. In this remarkable movement, Bach is painting the same evening calm that he has expressed in the accompaniment to the Arioso in the St. Matthew Passion, Am Abend da es kühl ward. Footnote. What is meant by the words in this aria, denn was ausliegt und not gescheit, das bricht de höchsten Ordnung nicht, will probably never be known. It is regrettable also that the poet has not taken further advantage of the dramatic situation instead of indulging in not very profound reflections. End footnote. The string figures suggest the hovering shades of evening. The oboes respond with a motive of the same kind. Thus the shades melt into one another and become darker and darker, but arousing no fear, only an immeasurable yearning for peace and rest. Then the first oboe sings a hymn of longing that dies away in the night in long sustained tones. The second oboe answers. The gloom deepens. The movement ends in the minor. Then the Bible words are recited over a quivering bass accompaniment. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst. The Lord brings his distressed disciples the peace of evening. For this reason, the accompaniment of the aria Wo zwei oder drei versammelt sind, where 2 or 3 are gathered together, is composed of reminiscences of the Sinfonia. In the chorale duet, Versag nicht, du Häuflein klein, the bassoon and violoncello have a theme that strides along in wide-spaced intervals, and in its fundamental idea reminds us of the theme of immovable faith in the chorale fantasia Jesus Christus unser Heiland, Peter 6, number 30. It is also interesting by reason of the phrasing that Bach has indicated for it. Footnote. The whole cantata should be studied for the extremely careful way in which Bach has added the phrasing marks and dynamic signs. Hardly any other sacred cantata is so instructive in this respect as this. End footnote. The final aria, Jesus ist ein Scheil des Seinen, is an outburst of exultant joy. Of the Michaelmas cantata Nun ist das Heil und die Kraft, number 50, only the first double chorus has been preserved, but this is so powerful in plan and execution that we can dispense with the remainder and almost regard the lack of the solo pieces as a blessing. The theme is constructed out of the strength motive, that occurs also in inversion, and the joy motive. This chorale double fugue is one of Bach's mightiest pieces of vocal music. Bach wrote the cantata Ich elender Mensch, wer wird mich erlösen von dem Liebe dieses Todes, number 48, upon the Gospel for the 19th Sunday after Trinity, Matthew 9, 1-9, in which Jesus heals the man sick of the palsy and forgives his sins, while the chorus sings the despairing words from the 7th chapter of Romans that give the cantata its title, O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? The orchestral accompaniment incessantly repeats the sorrowful question. While the trumpets and oboes play in canon the chorale Herr Jesu Christ, ich schrei zu dir. The full sense of grief is given in the sinister harmonies of the chorale Soll's ja so sein, dass Straf und Pein auf Sünden folgen müssen, but it exhausts itself at the words müssen, atonement, with which the strophe ends. In the succeeding prayer to Jesus, Ach leg das Sodom der sündlichen Glieder, sofern es dein Will zestoret dein Jede. Sorrow is quite overcome. The music breathes a serene longing for death. The theme anticipates the joyous and passionate animation of the following aria, Wer gibt mir Jesus meine Sünden, so wird mir Leib und Ziel gesund. The theme of this last movement commences thus. The last aria but one, therefore, should not be taken too slowly. The final aria can hardly be taken too quickly. It must be sung in a kind of wild ecstasy, no rallentandi in the cadences and no diminuendi in the transitions from forte to piano. That Bach's idea was that of haste, almost breaking into a dance, is shown by the fact that in the cantata O Wichkeit du Donnerwort, number 20, he employs similar music, but in the minor, to express the violent horror of the words O Mensch, erret dein Ziel, entfliehe Satans Sklaverei und mach dein Ziel frei. O man, save thy soul, fly from Satan's bondage, and make thy soul free. Perhaps it was at the direct inducement of Bach that Picander wrote a number of cantata poems which, like those of Marianne von Ziegler, took biblical passages as their point of departure. He selected for this purpose, almost exclusively, verses from the Old Testament, preferring those of unusual length. Unfortunately, the reflections he spins upon them are not so expressive as those of his model. We need have no scruple as to cutting out almost the whole of the recitatives in these cantatas. The musical connection of these works is evident at the first glance. Footnote. They are the following cantatas. Brich dem Hungrigen dein Brot, number 39. Es ist dir gesagt, Mensch, number 45. Es wartet alles auf mich, number 187. Es ist ein Trottrick und versagt, Ding, number 176. Wer Dank opfert, number 17. Unser Mund sei voll Lachens, number 110. Wir müssen durch viel Trübsal, number 146. End footnote. They resemble each other not only in the large scale on which the choruses are laid out, but in the great, sometimes excessive, length of the orchestral introductions to the choruses and arias. There are hardly any concise solo pieces in these cantatas. 3 of these works are founded on 2 biblical passages each, and are accordingly planned in 2 parts. They are Brich dem Hungrigen dein Brot, number 39, for the first Sunday after Trinity, Es wartet alles auf dich, number 187, for the 7th Sunday after Trinity, Es ist dir gesagt, Mensch, was gut ist, number 45, for the 8th Sunday after Trinity. The finest of them as a whole is Es wartest alles auf dich, number 187, which also has a satisfactory text. The first biblical verse is set as a chorus. The second, the beautiful passage from the Sermon on the Mount, Take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, is declaimed in a simple bass arioso. In the alto aria, Du Herr, du kronst allein das Jahr, the orchestra has a cheerful melody in which Bach has marked the nuances almost from bar to bar. The first part of the soprano aria, adagio, Gott versorget alles Leben, God nourishes every living thing, is founded on the rhythm of solemnity at the words Weicheth is Sorgen, away ye cares, un poco allegro, the music breaks into flying figures. Footnote. The small G minor Mass, BG8, consists from the Domini Deus Agnus Dei onwards entirely of movements from this cantata. End footnote. The peculiarly unsteady accompaniment in the first part of the chorus of Brich dem Hungrigen dein Brot, number 39, Give the hungry man thy bread, represents the procession of the poor and the suffering who are being supported and led to the house in accordance with the biblical precept. The second part abandons this motive and is expressive of praise and thanksgiving. The arioso upon Wohlzuten und mitzulteilen vergesset nicht, which opens the seconda parte of the cantata, is not so satisfactory as the setting of the second Bible passage in Es wartet alles auf dich, number 187. End of chapter 34, part 1.